Good evening. Thank you for joining us for our council meeting for Tuesday, March 14th at 7 p.m. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Charlie Davidson,
Here.
George Glover.
Here.
Ben Saucetta,
Here.
Charles Swanky,
Here.
Tom Jones,
Here.
George Capps, Brandy Bailey,
Here.
Jim Schrader.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll begin with Pastor Howerton. We'll do our invocation, and Councilman Schroeder will lead the pledge.
Let's pray. Lord, we come to you this evening and just want to say thank you for your goodness. Lord, we thank you for these men and women who give of their time to serve for this great city. And Lord, I pray you'd bless them, give them wisdom and grace. And Lord, we do pray for our police officers and firemen and women, and Lord, just all these people who do so much. And Lord, I pray you'd just bless the works of their hands and their minds and hearts. And Lord, we thank you for what you've done. This city truly is a light in this community, and I thank you for it. We pray you bless the meeting tonight, God, that you just govern over all affairs and give grace and wisdom. We love you and thank you for an opportunity to just be a part of your gift of governance. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May be seated. Start out with approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion? Jim.
Move that we approve the agenda.
Ben.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0. No awards and presentations tonight. Public forum, I do have Mr. Steve Dobson is signed up to discuss Roundabout and the turning circle at 61st and Broadway. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. As the Mayor said, my name is Stephen Dobson, and while I am not originally from Park City, I have lived here since 2007. My wife was born and raised here. She did not want to move to Scotland, so it's not my fault. I am a part-time employee of AutoZone, but the questions I am asking this evening are as a concerned citizen and resident, not as an employee. Over the last 46 years, I have driven on 3 continents and navigated successfully through several countries, not to mention many major cities, all of which have utilised roundabouts or turning circles. So for me, a turning circle is not a new experience. I would like to pose 2 questions regarding the construction of the roundabouts at the junction of 61st Street and Broadway. I also appreciate that the answers may not be readily available this evening and may need further research and discussion at a later date. When the construction was started, it is reasonable to presume that a study was made as to the effects it would have on the 20 or so companies in that immediate vicinity. From what I have learned, there have been at least 2 changes to the original plans, and I wondered if the same study was used or if a second or third one was performed, and what comments and or suggestions were made regarding those further studies. It is reasonable to presume that the sites chosen by several of these companies in the vicinity chose them due to the ease of access and egress. Given the current state of construction, it would appear that this ease of access and egress is going to be significantly changed. I do not profess to be an economist or a civil engineer, but I like to think I do have a modicum of common sense. Some people would state otherwise. The state of the construction in question leaves me at somewhat of a loss in understanding how this benefits not only the citizens of Park City, but also the dramatically negative effects on the companies in the immediate area. My first question is what, if any, assistance will be offered to the affected companies. I do not have access to figures regarding the loss of custom over the term of the construction, but it is not hard to imagine how all of these companies have been negatively affected. It also gives me cause to wonder how long they will remain in Park City if their profits in the not too distant future do not return to where they were prior to the current changes. My second question is, how are customers and other tradespeople going to access their AutoZone parking lot if travelling south on Broadway? They can, of course, negotiate the roundabout when it's completed and take an easterly direction, one would think. But due to the current median running east from those crossroads, it extends past the AutoZone entrance to their parking lot by approximately 36 inches. This causes the necessity of a U-turn or a similar manoeuvre. I am not sure whether that will be legal or illegal in Park City. I leave that to our police department. Or, of course, once it's completed, they can go all the way around the roundabout facing the direction they've just come from before turning right into the parking lot, which, of course, is an option available but unnecessary if a break in the median were allowed. Finally, I had hoped to discuss my concerns with the gentleman in charge of the project. However, when calls were made to see if a face-to-face visit could be scheduled to discuss my concerns, he was conveniently just going into a meeting. I was told if I left my number, he would give me a call. My initial request was on March 10th. As of 10 minutes ago, when I turned off my cell phone as a matter of courtesy, no such phone call has been received. Thank you for your time. I'd like to now take any questions or comments.
Any question? Thank you for coming tonight, and we do have your email address on here, and I don't have your phone number, but
I can give you that.
yes.
316.
But let's not do it on, because
Okay.
you're on TV, but Shauner's, sorry. Time's up. But we'll get it, and somebody will be back in touch with you, okay? So did
Thank
you
you.
talk to somebody on the site over there? Is that where you were trying to get a hold of somebody?
No, I actually came to the office.
Okay.
And then I was told to call, so I called and
Okay.
got no response.
Somebody will be in touch with you.
Thank
I
you.
assure you that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, staff reports. Do we have anything?
Good evening, sir. Not so much a report tonight, but I do want to make an introduction. If Gina could please come forward. Our new Public Works Director is Gina Estep. She is a Cali County Community College, Friends University, and Wichita State University graduate. She had worked at Sedgwick County Public Works Department for the past 10 years, where she was promoted several times. Her last position was as a highway superintendent, where she was responsible for the county's road and bridge program, as well as the 5-yard locations throughout the county. Prior to that, she worked for 7 years at the city of Hayesville as their planning and zoning director, as well as the community relations coordinator. And again, she started first thing this week, or last week. Which one?
First thing last week.
Last week. So anyway, I'd like to introduce Gina.
Thank you for being here tonight, Gina. Welcome you to the board.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sean, at our next meeting, could we get a kind of a status update on the roundabout?
Yes, sir.
I'd
Happy
like
to.
to see if there's been any further extensions from KDOT on the completion date, and then also kind of where they're at on percentage-wise completion.
Completion.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Ben?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Brandy?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Okay, move on to new business. Discuss and consider approval of a bid from Phillips Southern for installation of traffic signals at 53rd and Air Cap and 53rd and Interstate 135. John?
Yes, sir. Attached in your packet is a bid tabulation for the installation of the traffic signals at 53rd and AirCap Drive, as well as 53rd and Interstate 135, both the on and the off ramps, north and southbound. A bid opening was conducted on March 7th. The unfortunate thing is there was only one company that submitted the bid, and the bid was $551,180, which is well above the engineer's estimate of $390,585. Phillips Southern's base bid for 53rd and AirCap Drive was $236,520, and the base bid for 53rd and the off-ramps, on-ramps was $314,660. As far as the fiscal impact, back in October of 2011, the council approved a petition for the installation of the traffic signal at the intersection to serve Echo Hills. That would be the one at 53rd and AirCap Drive. The petition amount for that one at the time, 12 years ago, was $308,000 compounded monthly at 1%. The signals for 53rd and Interstate 135 would not be covered under this petition. It would be strictly taken from our capital projects fund. Staff recommends approval and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Phillips Southern.
Ben?
So it's about a 20-some% increase, does that sound right, between
Yes, sir.
estimate and what we got in?
Yes, sir.
I'm unfamiliar with this process part, so it's just a question. Have we looked at what it would cost to send back out to bid, or to do bid letting again on this?
It's not so much what it would cost to send back out to bid. There are only about 2 companies in the county that do traffic signals.
Okay,
and
so we
one
got a
of
50% return on,
And one of them right now, the bandwidth is pretty much indicated that, hey, look, when the engineers reached out to him and said, we're expecting both of you to submit a bid, it's like, well, we're sorry, we're too bid. Now,
that makes sense.
did that
I mean,
factor
that's-
into somebody else's bid? Possibly could have. It is unfortunate because just about every other bid that we've ever done on any other pavement, water, sewer project have all been relatively close, if not well within a 3% tolerance of the engineer's estimate. This one is just unfortunate, but it's not, so,
Okay, thank you.
yes, sir.
Tom?
Well, I was going to ask, we talked to local KDOT office to ask if they can help us.
No, sir. Well, I mean, they have already indicated, no, it is our responsibility.
Great.
So we have asked about various different options and programs available to us at this time, and they're like, nope, sorry. So,
Okay.
Randy?
I apologize if it's already in the contract and I just overlooked it, but what's the time frame for, once the contract is signed, and then I see that they go out for different pieces of it, but what's the time frame to completion?
that I'm not certain, ma'am. I'd have to get back with you on that. I do know that this is the one, if council remembers, we bought control panels or actually arms and masts prior to this before because we knew inflation was coming down the pipe and everything. So there shouldn't be any lead time as far as pieces and parts for the project itself. It should be relatively quick.
Okay.
The traffic intersection or signalization for 53rd and the on and off ramps is temporary. All the pieces and parts are something that we will be able to utilize if and when that intersection is improved. We have talked about traffic engineering analysis that recommended a divergent diamond somewhere in the future.
Yeah.
That's the important thing to take away from this is, yes, it's being put up temporary with wooden poles and span wire, but all the pieces and parts that we are buying are things that we will be able to use in a more permanent solution later on down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Tom?
Well, I just have one more question. This is just for the east side of 135?
This is both sides of
Both
135.
sides, okay.
Yes, and it's all in coordination, so it'll be 3 sets of lights.
Okay, because the southbound side is getting as bad as the northbound side.
Yes, sir, and that's,
Okay,
as soon as the TEEP study was completed and everything, that's part of the reason why it took a little bit longer. If you remember, it's been more than a year that the TEEP was completed, but it took KDOT that long to actually concur with the warrants that going forward.
A lot of the heavy traffic at this intersection is a result of the construction at the North Junction too. A lot of people are being diverted into our streets. I've heard a lot of complaints at 53rd and Hydraulic.
Yeah, it's backed up a half a mile every night,
Yes, sir.
all directions. Yep.
George Capps.
I don't have a question, but I do think this is overdue, and I'm glad to see us moving on it. And I'd also like to see some action down at 53rd and Hydraulic. That is, as I go through there and stuff, I see problems. I think we ought to move on it. Good deal.
Sir.
Ben.
Yeah, I have one question, then I'm ready to move on. It is concerning 53rd and Hydraulic, now that that's come up a couple times. I know that one of the requirements that we talked about before within the TEEP study was any sort of fatality accidents at an intersection is cause for traffic lights, can be cause for traffic lights. Is that correct?
And Chief may be able to chime in on this. The way I've always understood it is there are 9 different warrants that could be satisfied to justify a traffic light. A fatality accident or number of fatality accidents would be one of those warrants. So it is something that, again, we can reach out to KDOT as well as the company, which was Trans-System, that did the TEEP study.
I know we had one a year and a half or two back, unfortunately.
Yes, and they looked at the whole entire from 53rd to Hydraulic, all the way from 61st as well as 53rd. And this was the only one that they had recommended. The traffic signalization, though, was the on and off ramp as well as air cap.
Okay, and like I said, I agree that hopefully at some point we can get to that part. I mean, we can only do what we can do, so I get that. But I do think this is important that we do. Unfortunately, it'd be great if we had a little lower bid, but when you only got 2 dance partners to choose from,
Yes, sir.
and you only get one that gives you an invite, you can only do what you can do. So I'd make a motion to approve the bid tabulation, authorize the mayor to finalize and execute a contract with Phillips Southern in an amount not to exceed $551,180 to be paid out of the capital projects fund.
Thank you. Tom?
I was going to second that. I also wanted to state that the state's going to be widening 135 to 53rd, 61st Street. Eventually, they'll be coming back and putting lights in. But we're looking 4 or 5, probably 5 years away, and so this is something that's needed now. And I go along with it. I don't like the price, but we need the lights, so.
Jim?
Yeah, I fully support this. Hey, Sean, one comment, maybe the next meeting in 2 weeks, I get a lot of questions on this, and I'm sure we all do. Could you kind of let us know, confirm what the timing is?
Sure will, sir.
Thank you.
Sure.
Tom, do you know the projected date that the new ramp that's being built northbound 135 to go southbound on 235, when's that gonna be done?
They're just really getting started on it, and Tom Hine today made a comment that it's probably a couple years out before we would have all of that done. on
No,
it.
just the northbound to westbound or southbound.
They're talking about late summer.
Cause that
Tom Hine said I could tell you May 1st, and it'll be August or September. He said if I tell you September, they'll open May 1st. It's contractor driven.
we got a
right now.
roundabout we could tell them about too.
Yeah, I know. So, but he said late August is what they're looking at now.
Cause I think that'll relieve a lot of that traffic that's turning around at 53rd, and a lot of people are staying off of 135 because of the backup.
Right.
And they're taking Hydraulic, which is causing the backup at 53rd and Hydraulic.
Hillside isn't any better either. So I got off on K90, or on Hydraulic the other night because I was gonna miss a wreck on 135, and it was backed up clear to where you get off onto Hydraulic off of 96, so there isn't any, we're doing very good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. It was motion by Ben, seconded by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0. On to item 6, discuss and consider approval of design and construction engineering contracts for paving, sanitary sewer, water, and stormwater drainage improvements for Prairie Hills Phase 7.
Yes, sir. Prairie Hills Phase 7 is located on the east side of Hydraulic, south of 61st Street North. Petitions for paving, sanitary sewer, water, and stormwater drainage improvements were presented and approved by the council last April as well as November, subject to receiving the required letter of credit. Attached are the associated contracts from K.E. Miller Engineering for the design and construction engineering of each one of the projects. For paving, the amount is $54,300. Sanitary sewer is $85,600. Water is $16,900. And stormwater drainage is $13,900 for a total amount of $170,700. It is authorized and recommended funded via the Capital Projects Fund. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Sean. Do I have a motion? George Glover.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this. I move to approve and authorize the mayor to finalize and execute contracts with K.E. Miller Engineering, PA, in an amount not to exceed $170,700 to be paid out of the Capital Projects Fund.
Thank you, George. Jim?
I'd second that.
Okay. Have a motion by George Glover to approve and seconded by Jim Schroeder. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Move to item 7, discuss and consider a resolution authorizing the Beaumont Newport Street extension. Sean?
Council, this may look familiar to you, that you've done this, I believe, 3 or 4 times in the past couple of years. Charter Ordinance Number C-39, 2019 provides that the city may file with the governing body a multi-year capital improvement program for the development of the city, including public improvements, acquisition of necessary land, acquisition of equipment, vehicles, and/or other personal property to be used. In May of 2021, council approved such a resolution, number 1069, authorizing and providing for payments of cost for certain improvements within the CIP. Upon approval of the CIP, the city is then authorized to issue general obligation bonds in an amount sufficient to carry out such plans and associated costs, and by resolution shall specify the amount and purpose of temporary notes and general obligation bonds to be issued. This resolution attached in this package will serve as the initial authorization for the Beaumont Newport Street extension that council approved at the last meeting with an estimated cost of $123,095.
Ben?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve Resolution 1147-2023, a resolution amending and supplementing resolutions number 1069-2021 and 1081-2021, which authorized and provided for payments of the cost of certain improvements included in the multi-year capital improvement plan for the city of Park City, Kansas.
Thank you, Ben. Brandy?
Second.
Okay. Ben, do you have something else?
Oh, no, I just stayed on.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Ben, seconded by Brandy. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Move to item 9, discuss and consider approval of the purchase of replacement video cameras for the police department interview rooms. Chief Boston?
Mr. Mayor, council members, the police department has 4 rooms that are designated as interview rooms in the police department. Each room is equipped with 2 video cameras that are mounted on the ceiling and a microphone. And these were installed when this building was built in 2017. There's a description here with a little bit more detail about some of the problems that we've had with this system. I would prefer not to read through that at this time. Unless you have questions about that, I'd be glad to discuss that further here. But if I could move on, the original vendor that put the system in had a lot of problems with trying to stabilize it. We've been working with them for the last several years to try to address these problems. They haven't been continuous problems. They've been able to get the system up and operating most of the time, but it's been intermittent. And ultimately, they've been unable, the original vendor was not able to correct the problems. Since then, we've switched to a different vendor that there's only 2 companies available in the Wichita area for the video system that we have in this building. We switched to the other vendor, and they were able to immediately identify the problem. Basically, the cameras that we have are too old. They reached end of life 6 months after we moved into this building. And since that time, they've not been able to receive any firmware updates. So they've become increasingly unstable over the last several years as the cameras get older and older. In order to correct this problem, I would like to ask the council for permission to replace these cameras in 2 of the 4 interview rooms that we have. I feel that's the most critical need that we have right now. We need to have at least 2 rooms available out of the 4. And I would hope to be able to address the other 2 rooms in next year's budget. In order to do this, we would like to replace 1 camera and move it down from the ceiling down onto the wall, which is what that's the standard practice now, and that's what the vendor recommends as well, so that you get a much better view of facial expressions and body language as well, which is extremely important. The system would also include a puck or a device on the ceiling which would light up to show that the system is recording, very obvious, clear indication, so you don't have to wonder whether it's recording or not. So the detective or the officer that's doing the interview would be able to swipe their key fob. This is the way the system was originally designed. You'd have a key fob just like you have to enter the building here. You'd swipe that would turn the system on. The light would turn green to indicate that it's recording. It would also have a new microphone, and we believe this will solve the problem. Since we've not been able to use the key fob swipe system, we relocated those and replaced some of the other key fob devices throughout the building that have gone bad over the last few years. We've repurposed those, so we'd need to replace those. So that's part of the request. We obtained a bid for the labor and equipment to accomplish this project. The total was $7,574.43. This was quoted under the State of Kansas contract with Convergent, which is the vendor. This is an unbudgeted expense which would be paid out of the capital equipment fund under the, the IT replacement plan, and staff recommends approval of the purchase. And I would be glad to answer any questions.
Jim?
I honestly don't have any questions. That was pretty descriptive and sounds like a critical need. So I would go ahead and move to approve the purchase of 2 cameras related equipment, parts, and labor from Convergent in the amount of $7,574.43 to be paid out of the capital equipment fund.
George Capps?
I'll second that, and I would make the observation that I think this is very important because, you know, our officers in this day and age where the American trial lawyers, they seem to want to put the police on trial and everything, and it's good that the police officers have that camera to verify. It's a shame that our society has shrunk to that, but that's the way it is. That's the reality. The police have to cover their backside, or the attorneys will accuse them of stuff, as they always do. And so I think it's great.
Ben?
I have a couple questions, just real quick. So you mentioned that this would take care of 2 of the 4 rooms, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Just asking you on there, you mentioned that you'd like to maybe budget the rest for next year. How vital is it to having all 4 done?
The cameras work in the other rooms. The problem that we've had is when we're really conducting active interviews. So the other 2 rooms, we put people sometimes in those rooms. There have been times when all 4 rooms have been occupied. It's usually no more than 1 or 2 at the same time, most of the time. But when we have, let's say, all rooms are full, we're generally just keeping an eye on the folks that are in those rooms to make sure that they're not hurting themselves or doing something else. And the cameras that are there right now are working for that purpose. The problem is when we've tried to use the microphone system, that's all connected, and that's what's created our main problem. So to answer the question, I think we could survive until next year and then budget that expense.
And I appreciate that. For $7,500 more, we could take care of the problem and save a year of any increase in prices or anything like that. I mean, we're not talking 6 figures here. I guess my question, because you know what's in your budget left there on that part there. If it was something that would be a strain on that, I guess this would be my question more for maybe D or so. Is there an area within the budget that we could just get all four taken care of and call this good, get you what you need, protect our officers, and get this done with. I mean, that would be my thought if it's not gonna be an inconvenience. I don't wanna tell you how to do it, I just figure if we could knock it all out at once.
It is an unbudgeted expense, so we would have to find room in the budget for that. And that's one reason why I would prefer to do it, since it's unbudgeted, rather than trying to find those funds somewhere else within the police department, the capital equipment fund of the police department, where it's not budgeted, so.
Sir, it's a valid point, no doubt about it, and I don't know, we definitely don't know what inflation factors will kick in over the next year. I do know we've talked about this specifically under the IT replacement plan, that there's a total of X number of cameras in this building. I don't want to say that out loud, how many there are, but programmed over a 5-year replacement cycle, it's X amount of dollars, pretty much what he is requesting at this point in time period. So next year, we'll have the exact same amount.
Sure.
So that, yes, can we replace all 4 of them at this time? That is, yes, we can do that, but that means that something else that may have been programmed, ready to be replaced, a computer, may need to wait until next year as well.
Okay, I mean,
So it's a
like I
give and
said,
take.
if there's a bigger need, that's fine. I just want to make sure if it's something we can, for $7,500, that's not a lot of money in terms of big picture. $7,500 is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but in this case, so if that's your prerogative, I'm fine with that too.
Thank you, Ben. Charles?
My question was actually the same as Ben's. He'd tell you that great minds think alike, you know?
And then there's us.
Anyway, I just really wanted to find out how critical it was that we don't do all 4 rooms at this time, and I think you pretty well answered that.
Chief, I just had a question. When I pulled up the bid on there, do you have a copy of the bid by chance?
I do.
So on the bid tab, doesn't have a page number on it, but it has the amounts of everything. I'm just curious, item 5 on that line item shows 2 of them. Strobe sirens to deter intruders.
That's, there's 1 in each room, so that's where the 2 comes from, 2 rooms.
I'm just curious, what is,
That's the, what they call a puck.
Oh, that's the puck
device
you're
in the
talking
ceiling. The main thing is the light. It has LED lights. I understand it's about this big around, about like a smoke detector, and it lights up
Okay.
green or red. But it does have a speaker in it so that
that would be the same.
officers will be able to talk 2 ways to the individual if they felt like if they needed to
Okay.
say something to them, so.
Okay, thank you, Chief. All right, not seeing any further discussion. We had a motion by Jim Schroeder and seconded by Councilman Capps. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Okay, item 9, consider annual review of water and sewer rates. D.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The City of Park City's municipal code states the governing body shall conduct an annual review of the financial condition of the city's water and sewer utilities on or before March 31st each year to evaluate the need for any adjustments to the current water and sewer charges. Based on the results of the Wilson and Company rate study for the water and sewer departments, in conjunction with a comprehensive system evaluation of the city's water and wastewater systems, rate increases were approved for both water and sewer during the April 26, 2022 City Council meeting. The new rates became effective on the June 2022 utility bills. Staff therefore recommends no change in the water or sewer rates at this time.
Ben?
Hey, this is a motion I'm happy to make here. I'd like to make a motion that we approve no increase in the water and sewer changes at this time.
Jim?
I happily second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any arguments in the other direction? Okay, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Item 10, discuss and consider property casualty and workers' compensation insurance renewal. Marlo.
The city's insurance policy will expire on April 1st, 2023. The quote for the upcoming year is $236,180. This is an 11.98% increase from the 2022 quote. The increase is due to an increase in valuations of city buildings, the purchase of 5 new autos, and an increase in claims. This increase in cyber coverage is due to the rise in cyber attacks nationally. The city receives an annual dividend from the EMC each year in June. The average dividend paid to the city for the last 3 years has been $28,509.08. Staff recommends approval. You have any questions?
Brandy?
So I know ICI is our current vendor, but do we go out for bid to see what other insurance rates are out there and what can be offered?
Every 3 years we do, and we will do that next year.
Okay.
Is there a motion? Jim?
I don't have any further questions, so I would move to approve the proposal from Employers Mutual Casualty Company, EMC, for $236,180 effective April 1, 2023.
Thank you. Ben?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Jim, seconded by Ben. I'm seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-1 with Councilman Capps in opposition. Item 11, discuss and consider redistricting and amending ward boundaries. Sean?
Yes, sir. In November, council approved an agreement with Sedgwick County for GIS redistricting mapping services for the creation and publication of 5 individual map plans with electronic versions to be used for future redistricting discussions. Every 10 years, municipalities are encouraged to redraw their city council districts based on the latest U.S. Census data to accommodate or account for changes and influxes in district population due to people moving, new home construction, and general changes in neighborhoods. The redistricting process helps ensure residents receive fair and equitable representation in the local government, may be equalized by the number of residents in each district. The basic principles of redistricting are that wards should be compact, contiguous, avoid gerrymandering, and above all else, be as equal as possible in population. The percentage of the deviation between most and least populous wards may not exceed 10%. Attached are 5 different unique proposed plans, that was in the original package, for council's consideration, as well as a map of the current wards. Once one is selected, staff will draft up an ordinance with the new legal boundaries for each ward for council's approval at the March 28th regular meeting. Once adopted, staff will forward on to the county elections office for voting precincts to be amended and modified to coincide with the new wards. In your packet, it did list that all 5 proposals were within the 10% requirement, and it gave the population for each one of the plans. If council remembers at the last meeting, each one of you were given a handout of all the 5 plans at 11 by 17. It's a little bit easier to look at because it's just difficult to look at it on a computer screen. Since that time period, though, there have been 2 additional options that have been requested, options number 6 and 7, and so there's a printout at each one of your stations up there. And then also on the back side of that is a spreadsheet showing the demographics of all 7 plans. So that way it breaks it down top to bottom as far as the demographics. And you can see that, yes, all 7 plans easily comply with the 10%. In fact, for the most of all 7 plans, it's well within 5% deviation from the most and least populous districts. There is no recommendation on this. As Sedgwick County GIS is the one who did this, it was strictly a math problem. The target population for each one of the wards is 2,083 people, predicated off the 8,333 people for the 2020 census. So there's options for council to consider.
George?
Is that what it's about, the amount of people in each ward?
Yes, sir. Oddly enough, right now, just so that everybody understands where we're at and where we need to go, we all can kind of understand why Ward 1, the northern end of the city with the newer neighborhoods, has been growing a little bit faster than the rest of the city. So right now, their current, as of the 2020 census, their population was 2357, which is actually 13% above the target number of 2083. Ward number 2 was 4.99, or right about 5% less than the target amount. They had 1,979 people. Ward 3 had 1,971 people, so that put them 5.38% below the target amount. And then finally, Ward 4 was the one that was probably closest. It had 2,024, or was just 2.83 less than the target number. So obviously, there was quite a bit of split between Ward 1 and the rest of the wards. So this just kind of gets it back. The one thing that council may want to consider, I think we've mentioned this previously when we were talking with the contract on GIS, is that we know Ward 3 probably is the one ward that will have the least opportunity to grow because most of it is already developed. There's not a tremendous amount of open land space for that to do that. So if council were to err on the side of anything, they may want to, it's just a recommendation, may want to err on the side of making Ward 3 a little bit larger in population so that over the 10-year time between now and 2030, when other wards are growing, then they kind of equalize each other out. So we'll go through this process back again in 2030, so 10 years from now.
Somebody will be.
Somebody will. Yes, sir.
Jim?
I was just gonna say, good job, Charlie, on growing Ward 1. No, I studied this quite a bit, and I was just trying to think, you know, it's confusing to voters because I know it was this way last time when it's one ward on one side of the street and another ward on the other side of the street.
It is.
But I've studied, we got 7 maps here, and I can't see that any of them, there's really no way
There's not a
to.
tremendous amount of difference in it one way or another. I do
Yeah.
know that the reason why there became an option 6 and 7 is because it had indicated that there was a possibility, if we take like Ward 2, there's not really much opportunity for future growth in Ward 2, but options 6 and 7 now expands a little bit towards 69th Street, Cambridge Valley area, so it allowed for that. Ward 4 and Ward 1 automatically already have some new growth areas that are available to them. Ward 3, it did include a little bit of High Ridge. High Ridge is mostly built out, but again, it still offered some of that. So that's part of the reason as to why it would. I do know that one of the things that I learned throughout this process, and it's very difficult to see on this particular map, but if you look really close, some streets have a little dashed black line on them and some do not. Those are called census blocks. Anywhere that you see a very faint dashed black line, those are census blocks, and you are not allowed to divide one. So you may sit there and indicate, well, hey, I don't want the north side of the street to be in this ward, but the south side to be in another ward. I'd like to have both sides. Well, if that census block line runs right down the middle of the street, you either take both sides all together in both. It's a census block that you can't divide up. Bottom
Okay.
line. So
I don't really have a great suggestion here. They're just drawing line one place or another, so I'll listen to other comments, but that's all I have for the moment.
Jim, I want to point out for you and Charlie in Ward 1, so if you go to 69th and Hillside, that southwest corner is High Ridge. So that part is in Ward 1. And then the northeast corner of 69th and Hillside, those two that don't touch really, those are also Ward 1. So that was probably the only kind of question. There's a few of it on the further north end, but just so everybody understood how that
Oh, I
worked.
see.
Yeah. Tom?
I was looking at 6 and 7 that we were handed tonight, and it does a better job of not really alienated little strips. I know what's currently Ward 1, there was went down the middle of one street, probably got people on both sides, or one side of one street and one side of another street to try to get them into Ward 2. And what this does is it does a better job, or Ward 3, and this does a better job of laying it out, so it's more uniform.
Was that 6, Tom?
Pardon?
Is that Plan 6?
The
Both
two-
6 and 7
6
do
or
that.
7, either one.
Okay.
The difference in 6 and 7, sorry, Tom, I know you had the floor, but
That's okay.
the difference in 6 and 7, if you look where Councilman Capps lives, those little quadrants, I guess we'll call them, little sections to the south of his house, you'll see they're included still in Ward 3 in number 6, and they're moved to Ward 4 in number 7.
Of the two, 4 would be, or Plan 6 kind of leaves most of it alone, and the movement you've got is up there in Ward 1, trying to get 3 moved over, a little bit of movement in 2. Pretty much everything else stays the same.
Yeah. Sean, could you, you're done, Tom?
I'm done, yeah.
You remind me on, where we talked about like where Applebee's, Taco Bell, all that stuff's at. Why did that one go in 4 instead of 3? By looking at the numbers, 4 is high on population by about 100. Wouldn't that make good sense to put that in 3, or my eyes aren't all that good right now, so I don't know if that's in one of the, population.
And sir, without Patrick here, I don't know of a good answer to do that. I know that we had looked at some census blocks and kind of counted them and said, well, that's 80 houses, and if it was 80 houses, it's predicated on the census. So some may say if it's 80 houses, then that's a total of 160 people, but the census may have said 150. They're working with the actual data, and so they were trying to stay within those guidelines, because we told them we wanted to maintain 5%, not 10%, because you could even have a bigger split than this. So
John, I did miss that. I did miss that. I would have left it alone. I would have left that in Ward 3, where you're talking about there, that one side of the street.
And that's what, we're not sure, we could check maybe going into before we're just discussing tonight. So-
That's correct, and that's the one thing is to discuss and provide further guidance. Like I said, the mandatory requirement is to be within 10%. And all this is within 5%. So if council says, hey, I'm really leaning towards one or the other, except for the fact you feel very adamant that this one area needs to be still maintained or whatever, we could probably make that happen then.
I'm just going to make a comment. I was trying not to alienate any neighborhoods where we didn't have to, so.
Yep. Ben?
Yeah, my comment was more to your point. I think concerning number-wise, looking at maps 6 and 7, not knowing, I like 7, but I think it'd be interesting to see if that little carve out there north of Quick Trip or the Wendy's and all that, if it's possible, that goes into 7's map for into Ward 3 and out of Ward 4.
Yeah.
What section?
The area north of the Quick Trip there,
Okay, along Jacksonville?
Jackson, yeah, if that's possible. I mean, again,
Like I said, sir, if you look at the demographics of what ultimately end up as number 7,
It would probably take
Ward 4 is 4.99, so if that goes to Ward 3,
goes lower.
it's gonna work out.
well, I just mean the census block part of it. Not, no,
Yes.
I think it looks right, but I can't tell exactly. So if there's no reason why the census block would prevent that, I like 7 over 6 with that little caveat thrown in there just because it keeps continuity in the
Yes, sir.
historic part.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Ben. Charlie?
Yeah, I'm sorry I was absent last meeting. I don't know if we discussed this at all, but I was kind of looking more towards 3, but I appreciate, Sean, your explanation about, I didn't think about Ward 3 and the growth in Ward 1 and the amount of growth that potentially is there. So with that, I'm leaning towards Plan 1. I think I like that. I think that gives a buffer there for Ward 2 and 3, and gives some room for growth for Ward 1 and 4.
Did you get the 6 and 7?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. The thing about 6 is, I mean, maybe, Ward 1 is still 3%. I mean, we're within the 5%, but that's what I was looking at, so. anyway, that's just my 2 points. I think they all look pretty good, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlie. Jim?
Sorry, I'm still studying them too. I was kind of eyeballing two, not to continue to make this more complicated, but for the same reason Charlie was saying one, is because if we continue to have, I mean, we still have a lot of houses to build in Ward 1, so maybe that needs to be taken down more, and I noticed 7 and 1 do the best job of moving some of the households to the other wards and giving them a little more room for growth, and then we can backfill with houses that get, hopefully in the next 10 years till this happens again. So, but I was viewing Plan 2, just because that had nice, about as nice and even of lines as any of them. I don't know, there's really no wrong answer. I think everybody, this is one of these deals, everybody's right, so.
We'll each vote for a different one.
Yeah, exactly. But that was, I guess that's my point, is if we need to think into the future as well, maybe the one that takes voters, households away from one now positions us better as time evolves here.
Okay.
Hey, John.
Tom?
I've looked back at this, and if that one area there north of 61st Street was drawn out and back into 3, that would be my preference as number 6. 6 would be my preference if we could take that area up there by Quick Trip and put it back in 3, because that stabilizes everything that's already in Ward 4 down on the lower part of that under Ward 3, and that part of Ward 3 would stay in Ward 3. In 7, half of it comes out over by the school.
The only thing I would tell you, Tom, on that one,
Oh.
so the thing to consider is these last two plans,
Right.
they move our downtown development area is
I saw
gonna be
that.
into Ward 4.
Right.
So if the bigger you make Ward 4, it's gonna grow substantially over the next 5 to so years.
But I'm talking about putting that back into Ward 3, where we were talking about there's a row of houses up there
But
north. And then on the bottom half of this map, it takes in north of Beaumont. Part of that is in Ward 4 now, and on lines, map 6 or 7. And in 6, it leaves it like it is today. It moves it down south. Because we're getting ready to pick up a couple hundred, at least, people down there on 53rd Street in those duplexes. I mean, that's future, I mean, you know, but I was just looking at trying to keep more stable 6s more in line with what we have today.
So you're
on the south
saying
end.
6 minus the Quick Trip and north of there.
Right. Right. Because that is already in Ward 4, just like it is there on 6.
I think either on 6 or 7, putting that back in solves
Do that.
problems between 4 and 3.
Okay.
Let's do that for our next meeting for approval. Does anybody else, what's the popularity of Plan 1, I guess, that you'd like to see at our next meeting? So we can cut this down to about 3 plans?
Could I say something?
Yeah.
I know some people's got all these plans. I got 6 and 7, that's all I have.
Well, I brought mine from last time.
Oh, okay. I didn't bring mine.
I'll give them to you.
I got you. That's fine.
So I guess I'd like to get a kind of a consensus of what 3 do we want to come back at the next meeting, or 2?
That's okay.
I'm hearing that like 6 and 7, Tom feels like 6. I say we put 6 on there. 6 on there minus that area near Quick Trip.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything else you want to nominate to come back to us?
Let me look at 2 in with those
And
also.
I'd throw 1 in there too.
I'm good with 6 or 7.
1, 2, 6, and 7?
Yeah, that's what I agree.
Mayor, if I may, what we can do is, at the conclusion of this meeting, we can put all 4 of those. We'll renumber them, quite honestly, so that way people don't get confused. But we'll renumber them 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we can put them on the website as well. to see if we get any resident feedback whatsoever, and my suspicion is probably not, but nevertheless, and bring it back in 2 weeks, and that gives everybody a chance to think over it a little bit more.
Anybody else have anything further on that? Tom?
No. Can you send the updated one to us again?
Yes, sir.
Randy?
Thank you.
Yeah, I take that back. If you wanted down to 3, one, for me, 1 and 2 are pretty similar. So if Jim wants 2 in there, then I'm okay with just looking at 2.
2?
Yeah.
So scratch Plan 1.
Yeah. And then I have a question on 6. So the area that leads up more over, what's that top street up there?
Fairchild?
Fairchild, okay.
That was the one thing sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, you're fine.
So if you follow Fairchild East and then it curves around, I can't tell if there's dots. There's a little cul-de-sac that stays,
To the north?
houses
on it?
Yes.
I can't tell if there's a census block on that or not, but if there is, it'd be nice to just, that way that, there's like 4 houses in that neighborhood that'll be in a
Oh, is
different
that,
ward.
that cul-de-sac you said?
But it is on the north side of the road, so maybe that's why. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
If not, if you can't change that one, don't add another plan. Okay, so we're gonna proceed with, plan number 2, 6, and 7 for the next council meeting to consider. Everybody's good with that?
Yep.
Randy, did you have any more?
No, I'm done.
Okay. Okay, we have no action to be taken on that item. We'll move on to governing body reports. Jim?
I have nothing to report tonight.
Brandy?
So I went to the CNT board meeting this last week, and it's kind of exciting. Hartman Arena had announced that, they have pretty much something going every weekend, starting from April all the way through October 28th. So we should have lots of activity. And the aviators, or regulators, my bad, regulators are, out there now. So I think their game is this weekend. So, that's exciting. And then, on Sunday, I just want to thank Prairie Hills Homeowners Association for inviting us to come and sit at their annual meeting. One thing that they did talk about, which was mentioned here a few times tonight, was one concern is they would like to see some streetlights maybe at 53rd and Hydraulic. So I think that's something maybe we should really take a close look into, just see if it's needed or if we can do a study. But anyways, that's all I have.
George?
I don't have much, you know, the gentleman came here and talked about the roundabout at 61st and Broadway, brought back some bad memories for me. You know, it surprised you how things stay with you, but it was 32 years, well, a little over 32 years ago. An elderly gentleman was killed right in front of me while I was on patrol right there at 61st and Broadway. It was a fatality accident. It needn't have happened, but it did. You know, it's just as vivid today as it was then. I remember this gentleman had his seatbelt fastened. He had the green light. I was right behind him. We had the green light, and he was one of those classical dead right. He done everything right, and still, you know, that intersection, I'm sorry, sir, that intersection has bad memories for me. Even today, I'll hesitate internet intersection. It's kind of tragic, really. I'm sorry, but it just brings back a lot of memories.
Tom?
All I was going to say is I was kind of joking around a little while ago about northbound 135 to 235, but Tom Hine gave a 5-month window today about when that would open, and he said he wasn't sure. He told us March 1st on southbound 254 to 135, it's still closed. It looks like it could be open, but it's barricaded off still. And we talked about that last meeting, so I don't know when they're going to open those up for sure. I don't have anything else. The road is day by day, that's all I can say.
Charles?
I did like the peach pie, but my favorite really is cherry, so if you're.
Next year.
Okay. I did attend with several of the other councilmen and our mayor, the meeting of the cities for the county. It's a bi-monthly meeting, and I felt that that was, it was interesting, and you got to meet some people that you already knew and didn't know. And I thought it was a valuable tool for our council to go to. And that's all I got.
Ben?
Yeah, the SCAC meeting was good. Thank you to the city staff that did the work in preparing that. I was a little surprised some members of other cities didn't make their way this time to one of our meetings in our buildings, but that's okay. I do want to wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day if you are celebrating on the 17th, and then come out the next day, Saturday, for convos and coffee at Leakers.
George Glover?
Yeah, the LEAP program, Low-Income Energy Assistance Program, that application period ends on March 31st. If you are in need or know someone that's in need of help with gas and/or electric, their bill, you can go to Department of Children and Family website and find information about that, how to apply. Also, the EWAP program, the Emergency Water Assistance Program, is the same. In lieu of a disconnect notice you may have, you can go to the DCF website and apply for that as well. Thank you.
Nothing, Mayor.
Well, I don't have anything either tonight, so I would entertain a non-debatable motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ben? And Charlie.
Second.
A motion by Ben, seconded by Charlie. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 8-0.